Hi, I'm John LaRoquette. You'll want to stay with us for the next half hour because we're about to enter the 10th Kingdom. Hold on. Welcome to the 10th Kingdom, the making of an epic. So what is the 10th Kingdom? It's a place where all the fairy tales you knew as a kid come true. You take modern-day New York, you mix it with a mythic land of legends, and the end result is a spectacular fantasy adventure love story. And it's funny, too.
Dad, what sheep songs do you know?
Baba Black Sheep.
No, she's already doing that.
Then, I don't know, we'll just pick any song. Just put sheep words to it.
Buddy, you're young, you look at you playing in the fields, gonna be a big ram someday. You got wool on your face, you big disgrace, waving your face all over the place, singing, we will cheer you.
Obviously, we had a great time making this film. You're about to see why. With over 2 years of pre-production, 7 months of filming in a half dozen countries, hundreds of actors, an astounding 600 visual effects, Epic is the only way to describe this project. The film reunites the award-winning team who brought you Gulliver's Travels, executive producer Robert Halmy Sr. and screenwriter Simon Moore, who are known for television events.
Take 2 for A camera. A camera. A camera. Take 1. Background action. Action, action, Charles. Action!
What I wanted to do with the series was not just do a fantasy series where all the characters you met were strange and came from a different world. I wanted to take 2 ordinary people from our world and then throw them into this weird and wonderful world.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
This is Snow White's cottage. Oh, goodness gracious me, this is the 7 Dwarfs' house. It's been lost for a very long time.
It's really wonderful the way Simon Moore has crafted this whole story as a modern fairy tale. He's brought in Snow White and Cinderella, Rumpelstiltskin, Rapunzel. There's all sorts of references to the Grimm's fairy tales, and it's a very smart story, I think.
I'm gonna die of long hair.
It's just got all the great elements of a fairy tale in it. Those incredible shoes.
Yeah, but what my co-star Kimberly forgot to mention was that after we get sucked into this crazy world, we're chased by gypsies, trolls, a sharpshooting huntsman, and an evil queen.
Pity the fool who tries to stand up to me.
Well, it's kind of delicious. I plot to sort of kill anybody who's in my way. She's pretty bad. You want to stay away from her because you'll end up dead.
We have a great cast on the 10th Kingdom. Besides a darker head version of me, there's Academy Award winner Diane Wiest, Emmy winner Cameron Manheim as Snow White, Rutger Hauer as the Huntsman, Scott Cohen as Wolf, the ever-lovely Anne Margaret as Cinderella, Ed O'Neill as Relish, the Troll King, and his 3 sweet children. Well, we'll meet them later.
The 10th Kingdom! Action!
I think the story itself is what appealed to everybody who came to actually do the piece. It is a story of a man and his daughter who go through extraordinary mythical lands, which is a fascinating tale.
Don't eat that apple!
Hey, why not?
Think about where you are. Snow White's cottage.
Yeah?
That apple tree has probably grown from the pips of the apple that poisoned her.
There's nothing safer on this crazy place.
If you're an adult who's ever loved a fairy tale, this takes you to the next step of loving that fairy tale all over again with new eyes, with grown-up eyes.
I've always wanted to say this. Love of my life, let down your lustrous locks.
It is storytelling in its grandest sense because it takes all these stories that we all know and combine them and give you one huge, enormous, wonderful story.
Rescue is at hand!
It really spans an enormous world to journey through all of our fairy tales that we knew as children.
Grimm? As in Grimm?
Gotta be, right? I mean, all stories that weren't made up, they're true. He was here 200 years ago.
Trust me, when you join us in the 10th Kingdom, you will find fantasy and action and romance and adventure. It's really a spectacular place to come and play.
I get the feeling you still don't completely trust me.
I don't trust you at all. You tried to eat my grandmother.
Coming up, we'll take a look at some of the secrets behind the 10th Kingdom.
You see, unfortunately, it does look like me.
Plus some not-so-secret moments we hoped you'd never see.
That's for the blooper.
When you're in a world where fairy tales are real, like the 10th Kingdom, all bets are off. The usual rules don't apply. Our story is reminiscent of the classic fables of the Brothers Grimm and other fairy tales, but it's slightly, okay, not so slightly, twisted. In it, you'll find many familiar characters. Little Bo Peep, Snow White, Red Riding Hood. Surprise! Not to mention goblins, gypsies, and trolls.
Nicey nice.
Remember, once upon a time, fairy tales weren't written just for children. In spite of their name, popular fairy tales have very little to do with fairies. A large number of these stories were written in 17th century France. It was in the next century that the Grimm brothers collected the folk tales of the German people to make up their volume of classics. But many of the best-known tales that have been told and retold are far older in origin. Often the elements were dark, and whether it was the written words or the unforgettable illustrations, the images they conjure up in all of us are something we never forget.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair.
As the times changed and storytelling moved into the 20th century, Hollywood got into the act. The elements we all know, kings and queens, evil monsters, and magic mirrors, were all there. But the technology wasn't.
My goodness.
As we enter the 21st century, technology has narrowed the gap with storytelling. The 10th Kingdom is the latest and largest fantasy action-adventure from NBC. And with films like Merlin, The Odyssey, and Alice in Wonderland, Robert Halmy Sr. has set the standard for epic storytelling on television. This resurgence of literary filmmaking started just 4 years ago with a little mini-series called Gulliver's Travels.
In Gulliver's, we presented literature like it never was presented before. We presented it for adults. I don't want to repeat myself, so every time, whether it's literature or fantasy, I have to go to a different world and gives it another level of entertainment.
While visiting the strange lands of the 10th Kingdom, one of the odd characters we meet on our journey is Acorn the Dwarf, played by Warwick Davies, who many of you will remember from the feature film Willow.
I think fantasy is a form of escapism for people, which is a reason that the genre is so successful on television. And the 10th Kingdom is perfect for people to just put themselves into another world and take this journey with the characters.
One door leads to safety. One door leads to a horrible death.
What is the point in having a door that has a horrible death behind it, huh?
I mean, what does that achieve?
What are you doing?
I guess it's the other one.
You never know what to expect when you're trapped in a land of fairy tales. Many of the characters we come across on our journey home are the kind that you and I grew up with, fantasized about, and often they showed up in our nightmares. When I was 10 years old, I thought that there were guys with long hair and big bones in their noses living under my bed. In our movie, we get to see them, in the flesh.
That room was not there a moment ago. You are crafty.
You know, it seems like in the 10th Kingdom there's always someone or something waiting to grab you. Every great story has its villains, and those are the roles most actors love to play.
So good to have the power.
Well, between the Queen and her henchmen, we've got some great villains, but I promise you've never seen the likes of Burly, Bluebell, and Blabberwort, the trolls.
What's this?
More magic.
I think that people will really like the sense of fun involved in this and the sense of adventure. Have you seen these guys? I mean, with the noses and the hair and the costumes and the voices, it's terrifying. But I also think this film has a real sense of humor about it.
Wow, this could be a long torture session.
I'll tell you anything you want to know.
I torture first, then you talk. It's better that way.
Who knew what to think? They say, go be a troll in the middle of Europe for 6 months, and you're thinking, okay, I've been a police officer, I've been a detective, I've been a student. How do you be a troll?
They are called the Brothers Gibb.
And the song, it concerns a deadly fever that only strikes on Saturdays.
We kind of figured out early on, we're like the Three Stooges. And anybody that's visited New York for the first time will sympathize with the trolls when they go to Central Park in the middle of the night and see a taxi cab for the first time.
Our carriage is here.
The trolls get in trouble, get out of trouble. It's troll power.
We know how to do it. We know how to do it. I'll do forever.
Next up, we'll show you the magic behind the scenes that helps transform fantasy into reality.
It's all a lot of magic.